By the host and guests of this show do not represent their employing agency, department, or organization. All information should be regarded as anecdotal, contextual, and educational, and should not be misinterpreted as legal or medical advice. Welcome to Blue Grit Radio, the podcast that explores making better cops for a better community. I'm your host, Eric Tung. I've been an active police officer since 2007. We will dive into the aspects of police culture, health and wellness, leadership, and mindset. You'll hear from experts not only from policing, but all industries as they relate to being our best with purpose, passion, and positivity. Join me as we share stories, lessons, and advice so we can all be better for ourselves, our teams, our families, and our communities. All right, welcome back, everybody. Today, we are going to tackle, a little loosely, we'll see where it goes, but we're going to tackle the critical conversations of training and leadership and culture and where those intersect. Frequently, we talk about these prongs on the show, but not necessarily all together when we think about thought leadership, when we think about where the profession is going or needs to go and where we need to course correct for some things that we may be seeing in the country and beyond. Without further, I'm excited to bring together the conversation and the panelists today. We have Scott Savage, who joined us in episode 217 about ending checkbox police training with true critical thinking. That's the title of the episode, and that's really what we dive into. And we'll get into a little introduction there. And we have Captain Heather joining us for the first time. But without further, welcome, Scott and Heather.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Excited to bring in Scott and Heather. Welcome, both of you.
Is he completely? Yeah.
You're totally frozen.
Oh, it's just you and me now.
Off. See, let's take over this thing. Yeah, welcome to the new podcast.
What's up?
You got rid of that other guy.
I wonder if it's still recording for him while we're on here.
It says it's recording.
It does on my end too. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah, that sucks. He got booted off his own podcast. Well, good. Now we got rid of the dead weight.
Yep. Scott and Heather, all in.
Oh, he's texting me. Standby internet issues.
Yeah. All right. So we'll just, I love this.
Great.
This is a first.
It worked great until the minute he started recording.
Yeah, that bandwidth kicked in, right?
Are you guys affected by the winter whatever storm that was going through? Is that?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. 16 inches.
Holy.
I know. I'm very lucky though in my position. Like if the school closes, I don't go in. I'm remote. So
nice.
So I was off Monday, Tuesday. I mean, remote Monday, Tuesday, but I didn't have to drive to work. So
the students aren't even going to class. It's so bad.
Correct.
What?
I mean, Newark's horrible in the snow. I mean, there's nowhere to put it, right? So
wow.
Nowhere. Yeah. How about you?
So everything just shuts down, right? That's crazy.
Yeah. Did you guys deal with any kind of weather out there at all?
Nope.
No, because I know Texas was like under snow, which was crazy to me.
Yeah, I just got back from Las Cruces, New Mexico, and I flew into El Paso, but there's no issues there whatsoever. Yeah, I know other parts of Texas were, but El Paso, New Mexico was fine.
Hey, welcome back.
Hey, he's back.
We took the podcast over, buddy.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, have you been talking like you're still on the podcast? Because that'd be
great.
No. That'd be great.
I mean, yes and no.
Now I got to decide.
We were like, we got rid of dead weight. See ya. We took it over.
Yeah, I'm the captain now. I don't know if I cut out because I said like Captain Heather earlier, and then I cut out. So I don't know if you even heard that, but that's very appropriate. You're the captain, Heather, so run the show.
I'm so tired of running the show. I just want to be a yes sir kind of girl.
Oh, do you want to like, do you romanticize going back to like boots on the ground?
What a great question. Yes. I mean, I will still go out and be boots on the ground because I need it. Like I really need it. One, it kind of reconnects me to the passion of police work. Do you hear my dogs in the background? Should I wait? Okay, good. The passion of police work, I love it. But I had this whole conversation with a buddy of mine that just retired as a chief of police. And he didn't give much notice. It was very, I guess, sudden in terms of retirement. And he had this overall feeling. I'm like, doesn't it kind of feel like you just didn't get to finish your career as a cop when you're an administrator? Like you're a paper pusher and you're a box checker, and it's this evolution. Like when you love being a cop and you did this job to be on the road and be a cop and make that impact, sometimes it gets lost in the sauce as you're on for a long time and you have more of a role of being a manager and a leader and all of those things in a formal sense, not just an informal sense. So yeah, I wish I could go back every day and let go of all the responsibility that I have. I wish I could just get in a patrol car and drive around and engage with the community and enforce laws and do right by people and make an impact that way and do the investigations. But I also understand the impact I'm having now as a leader on my people and my team. And, the goal is to leave it better than I found it. Yeah, every day I wish I was still on the road. Yeah.
Yeah, and like there's just kind of a tension there, and maybe it needs to be there. It is what it is. Yeah, I'm in a cubicle almost all the time, and sometimes I break away, and usually it's because actually put in my schedule to drive around and like grab a stupid call or like back somebody, and it's those moments that really like put a smile back on my face because I'm like, this is the stuff, and then I feel kind of like I want to like remind people how awesome it is, but I'm like, well, that's kind of dumb because I mean, with the right context and the right people, they can get that. I think inspiration. I can get inspired by how excited some of my younger officers are for like doing the job, but it'd be kind of I could see how it could be misreceived if it's just like, hey, you guys do this all day, all week, all the time. I went to 2 calls. That was kind of cool, right? Like, remember how connected the community you are? Remember the important work you do? Okay, cool. I'm going to go back to my desk. Like, I could see how that would be not received the best way.
Yeah. I was literally just talking to Scott as, you were dealing with the technical issues and he was asking about the storm we just had with, the 16 inches of snow. And I have the benefit because I'm at the level I'm at that if the university goes remote, I go remote and I don't have to be in there. So, those are the times where I really turn around. I'm like, thank you all for being here. Like, I don't have to get out in direct traffic. I don't have to go out to that crash in the snow, in the cold, and freeze. Like, I can choose to stay in my little warm bubble. And so that's when I'm like, oh, well, these are some benefits. But, man, the adrenaline of going to calls, like, nothing's ever going to beat that. Like, ever. Just never will.
Yeah. How are you feeling, Scott? You're fake retired. You ran a legit first responder career, on the red side, on the blue side. For those that haven't listened, do listen to episode 217 to hear more about Scott and his career and now running this awesome burgeoning, is that the right word? It's the training outfit is doing great. So you're not retired.
No, and people, I retired from law enforcement in 2023, and then people ask me, do you miss it?" And honestly, I guess the answer is no, because I feel like I did it all. Like I got a chance to do that for so long, and like you mentioned, before I was a cop, I was a paramedic. Before I was a paramedic, I was an EMT. So for since 19 years old, this is literally all I've been doing. And so that's a pretty long season to be working outside, and working, doing shift work and all that kind of stuff. And so, I got my fill of that. I definitely miss the adrenaline, kind of like Heather mentioned. It is, was still fun and still exciting, even, you know, up to my last year on hearing those types of calls coming over the radio, right? That there's something that's just very exciting about trying to control chaos or, when a suspect runs from us and trying to outsmart them and outmaneuver them and all that kind of stuff is really exciting. But, the highest rank I ever achieved was sergeant. And so that was still on the street. And that was the most fun I've ever had is just being a patrol sergeant. Right.
Yep.
And when I lateraled to my second agency and I left being a sergeant, I started over as an officer and immediately starting over as a police officer after having been a sergeant for so many years was a trip because I had almost no responsibility, right? And the only responsibility you had was for yourself. And it was fun. It was so crazy that all I needed to do was go in my little patrol beat area and handle my little calls, and stop crooks in my little beat, my little district. I didn't have all these other responsibilities, and it got back to being just the fun part of the job, which, man, is kind of fun, right? I definitely encourage everyone to become a sergeant, move up and do all that stuff, but there is something really just fun about just being a regular person, right? Not having all these other added responsibilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sarge is awesome. I mean, what a cool role. You're like hybrid. You're really I mean, you should be with your troops a lot. You see some people that they take a back seat and they're at their desk, like, as much as I am, which is really sad. And I mean that proverbially. I'm not observing it in my circles, but we all know that archetype. Uh, but at the same time, like, so much influence, like, so much actual translation of, you talk about command intent, like, who actually makes that work? It's the sergeants, or who doesn't make it work? It's the sergeants, for better and for worse. So, yeah, huge opportunity there. I'll just say this because I'm not sure exactly how I'm gonna do this episode, like the start, but I like how this organic conversation started. But in case I cut it earlier than when we started, I did a more traditional intro, and then, like, my internet went out, which is awesome for the person hosting a podcast. But these two are resilient veterans in the space. So, in any case, like, we were kind of talking about initially when we were bouncing some ideas around about, like, training and the intersection of training and leadership and the progression and direction of police culture, because without training, what are we doing? So critical. Captain Heather, very, if you didn't get a sense already from just her, like, missing the street, like, she's a tried and true, like, practitioner that trains. She trains other people because she has to understand it. And we were talking about that one time. So that's fantastic. I mean, some people show up because they have to, and some people show up and watch, and some people don't show up as police leaders. So good on you. But I want to turn it over actually to Heather. If you could do a little bit of an introduction of yourself.
Well, I am Heather Glogolich, which you probably just can't pronounce my last name, so that's why you said Captain Heather,
Yeah, I
which is
didn't want
totally fine.
to try.
Oh, it's not easy. My maiden name was Jones, and I always joke with my husband about how I should have just kept it because it was easier, but it's fine.
Mhm.
Glogolich it is. But yeah, I mean, I've been a cop for a little over 22 years. I had no idea that this is where I wanted to go. There was no one in my family that did it, and I fell in love with it in high school when I did a ride along, and I've just been in love with it ever since. And I see that, and everybody's like, "There's no way you love policing that much." And yeah, there are plenty of times where I wanted to quit, but along this long journey of where I'm at now, I've just been able to learn so much and make so many impactful relationships. And impact is really important to me, and that's why I do this job. But we were, bringing in talking about training, and that's probably been the one aspect of my career that I've loved having the opportunity to be a part of the most is helping people see in themselves what I see in them before they even see it, or telling them what's possible. And I don't know how it works for you guys, but I'm in New Jersey, and it's just, while it's a smaller state, it's so densely populated and there's so many people. And when things happen in just another county, we don't know what's going on. And I always thought it was such a small little circle I had at my agency, and that there was no outreach, and the possibilities that I see now, I would have never known were possible. So it's been really nice to see that transcendence of my career, to be able to have friends on the West Coast that were, I would go out to California. I'm like, hey, you want to hang out and see each other? Or I meet people online on social media, and then I get out for a class, and it's like I've known them all along. And so, just introducing myself that way is, a journeyman in this profession, and a connector, I guess, is how I see myself. Personally, I'm married, I have 4 children. My youngest just turned 10, my oldest just turned 19,
Mhm.
which makes me feel super old. And yeah, I'm a captain of the police department. I work for a training company called the Justice Academy, and I own my own company called Empowered Policing, because I think that's what we need to do. We need to stop, using words like defund and abolish, and start talking about funding our police department, especially with training and manpower and the ability to give them more resources, not take away the ones that we already have. So that's me.
Yeah, I love it. And you said a couple things that I really want to highlight in context to the conversation about being a sergeant and deciding if you want to promote. And I think what that was when you talked about how you get lit up when you see that potential in someone else, and that's that mentor coach. There's that true type of supportive leadership. And I think for me, that was a really good point in my career, the pivot point where I was like, yeah, maybe I should test for sergeant, because I loved helping people out. I loved, like, taking people under my wing, or when people came up to ask about what I was doing in my career or what helped me, just really taking that mentorship role. And then there's a tipping point for me where someone else's successes just got more exciting and felt more meaningful than my own achievements. And maybe this is me reflecting at, like, quote unquote middle aged at 40, but like I don't mean to sound a certain way, but I've achieved a lot on paper. And there is a part of me because I was raised to achieve that I'm like, okay, like what else? And there's a part of me that's hungry because I feel like I need to or I'm lazy. But then there's also a part of me that like it's just more stuff. So what really matters, right? And that's where your underlying impact really resonates with me. So yeah, I really appreciate that little intro. Scott.
I love that you said that.
Yeah.
Let me just like, and I think Scott's going to agree with this. There's a difference between people, right? There are the people that are driven by certain motivators, and then there's self motivation and self discipline that really drive you to be a certain way. And as you're talking about that, you were raised to achieve. I look back and I don't know if that was ever a pressure put on me by my parents, but there were values instilled in with me, like you don't quit something you start. When you're part of a team, the team is what matters, and you can't really teach that. And I don't know if Scott can attest to this, but when I made sergeant, there wasn't a whole lot of training to become a sergeant. It was like, hey, reviews these SOPs and review the calls and how you're going to have to manage them. But it was never about building effective teams, cohesion, growing your people, thinking about goals and objectives, the things that really make us better humans, which innately I already did for myself, but I didn't know it was a thing. And then if I talked out loud about it, I was like this hippy dippy person that thought outside the box. And I should not. And I should just stay in my lane because that's not how police work works. Right.
Hmm.
So, I love that Scott has this beautiful training company, and I'm upset I didn't get to go to one of his classes because I've heard nothing but great things. But it's like, that's the training we need. Like, how do you have those uncomfortable conversations? How do you lead with words? Because words matter. So your people understand that your job is still to correct them because and to help them and to support them, but not in a way that always has to be punitive. And how do you word it so the other people hear it? Because a lot of times we go into a conversation wanting to prove a point instead of wanting to make an impact, right? So that's the kind of training I wish I had that I didn't get until I gave it to myself. But that falls in alignment with your like I was born to achieve what it looks like, and I don't want to be lazy, and I want to be the best version of myself. So I just love that you said that because it kind of just had my brain going in a million different ways about training, especially that frontline supervisor.
Yeah. Scott, what do you got?
I agree with everything that both of you said. I think what you're describing there, Heather, when seeking out your own training is because you wanted to be not just a sergeant, you wanted to be a professional sergeant, right? You wanted everything that word encompasses. And Eric, same thing, like you have all these sort of professional goals that you've achieved because you're trying to not just sort of do the job, you're trying to be really good at the job. And there's people that are satisfied with getting hired to be a police officer and wearing the uniform and sort of looking the part. There's people they're satisfied with that. I achieved it. I got the job. I have all the stuff. And then maybe they'll get promoted for the money or whatever. And they are proud to wear the trappings of leadership and kind of look the part of leadership. But there's no real internal drive to seek out professional development, right? Then there's another kind of person, which is the sort of people that I think we are, which is like, well, I'm hoping my agency is going to provide me this training. I'm hoping they will train me to do this. But if you don't, I will seek out that training and I'll seek out my own development and I will like Heather said, I'll train myself. And I think that's like the magic sauce to success in any career field is I'm going to be the best version of this. And I'm not going to let anyone else dictate which way my career goes. Every cop I meet says the department doesn't provide me enough training in, whatever. And I applied for this training, but I got denied. Right. And, sort of the point I'll make to cops is, listen, I own a training company. I want to sell you training classes. Like I have every reason for you to come attend our training classes. But I got to be honest with you. You don't just have to go to formal training. You don't just have to pay a training company to execute these courses. There's so many different ways of gaining like professional, wouldn't be experience, but knowledge, I guess it was, or skills. And it's some of it's going to cost a little bit of money, right? You need to invest in yourself financially. But isn't it true that there's a bunch of free stuff we can do, right? Podcasts, books, the connections like Heather was describing, right? I don't think it costs anything to hop on LinkedIn and start being a friendly person and getting connections and meeting people. And gosh, if you reach out to people and you say, listen, you seem to be an expert in this topic. I don't know a lot about that. Could you teach me something about this? It's amazing. Most people will be like, oh, I'd love to tell. I love talking about that. So let me share that with you, you know? So I just think that, in our career, in our career field, that's something
Yeah.
that we would benefit from as an industry if everyone adopted a growth mindset and said, I'm going to be a professional police officer or deputy sheriff or whatever. I'm not just going to be a cop. I'm going to be a professional cop. I'm going to be physically fit, very smart, skilled at fighting, skilled at interpreting the law, skilled at investigations, whatever all those domains are that our jobs encompass. Our industry would be better off and our society would be better off because now you'd have all these really high functioning cops out there versus, sorry, I think I don't think we can make that claim that all or even most of, the cops in the 18,000 police agencies in America are super high function. I'm not sure we're there yet.
Yeah. No, thanks for that. You put out a lot of stuff that I agree with, and I want to highlight a couple things or kind of work off of them. And it's almost this notion of like whether you're I mean, in the first episode, a lot of what we talked about was checkbox training, right? So it's more of the conceptual nature of how you design training, quote unquote training, and whether you're actually teaching and whether someone's actually learning something, right? Like whether it's actually translating versus like, hey, show me this wristy twisty. They did it. Oh, except do that one thing. Okay, check. Got that. You're now qualified to do the wristy twisty, right? And the gaps in that traditional training that still very much exist, right? And in that episode, you talk about a lot of ways to evolve that. But even in this professional development, even when we talk about something more conceptual, and more idea based, like leadership, let's say leadership training, right? Where you talk about building trust, you talk about communication, emotional intelligence. Cool, like I put in for my training. I want to be a supervisor one day. I want to grow as a leader. And my boss told me, no, crud. I guess like this agency isn't supporting me in my goals and developing or whatever. I take my ball and go home. Well, it almost strikes me like that type of person that could get a ton from books and podcasts and hitting up someone on LinkedIn and picking their brain and listening to seminars, webinars, things of that nature that are very free 99. They were approaching that awesome training that might be super legit as checkbox training, where they just wanted to put it on their training resume, right? They wanted to put it on their
Mhm.
on their little thing. They could talk about it when they test one day, but were they really going to learn any of the things there anyway? Because they weren't actively or aren't actively learning any of the things that they have readily available to them now.
Yeah, that's right. And a lot of agencies say, or a lot of officers say, well, my department should be the one footing the bill, right, for whatever this training is for my job. And I totally agree. Your department should be footing the bill. That makes perfect sense. But the same could be true of being in shape, being physically fit. Like some departments have on duty workout programs and great gyms and, all this like nutrition and wellness stuff. Some departments take it super seriously and like their gyms rival, some of the best gyms you could ever join. And I've seen some of them. You're like, wow, that's amazing. But if that's not the case for you, let's say you don't have an on duty workout program, does that mean that you're just not going to work out? Or because my chief wouldn't pay me to do this, does that mean you're just not going to be a healthy person? That doesn't make any sense. So I think the onus is on the individual to not let your department define your career, your safety. Well, maybe now in 2026, we should add your freedom. What, if you're not getting proper training in knowing the law and the ever evolving case law, and your department's not providing you that training, does that mean you're just not going to seek it out? That's a pretty big gamble for the career field we're doing. You may find yourself not only facing criminal exposure, but potentially not only facing civil exposure, but potentially criminal exposure because you didn't know the law and you went and acted upon something. So, I just think if you're truly a professional, you're like, well, I'm going to get this training and I'm going to become the best version of me. And I'm not sure who's paying for it yet. I'd love to have the department pay for it, but we're going to make this happen one way or the other. And I'm not going to take no for an answer.
Yeah. It just comes with
Yeah, and that comes down to a culture issue, right? Like a culture of this profession. I mean, I don't know if when you guys started, anyone said to you, hey, seek out as much training as you can, even if it's this, even if it's this. Or why do I, in my old agency, you needed permission to tow a car or to do a search. You had to let the sergeant know. You could shoot somebody if you needed to. You could draw your gun and make the decision whether or not to use lethal force. But in order to step out and use the bathroom and take a private, you needed permission and those things, right? So we're building this culture of permissibility and asking for permission to do things such as make ourselves better. And we're not providing those opportunities. And so here we are stuck with the majority of people who are like, I can't do this without permission because I've never seen anybody else do it. I've never been able to think for myself. Or then you have supervisors that are telling you, well, I know that you're interpreting the case law that way, but I don't see it that way and you're wrong when you're really not. And it's this balancing act of what this culture is. I know everybody that starts this job for the most part is like, I would have done it for free, like when they start, right? Like so excited. I don't care if I'm making below minimum wage. I don't care if I have to walk a beat in the cold. I don't have to care about these things. And then they're there for 6 months, a year, 2 years, however long, and they just are infiltrated with that low morale, that what am I getting out of it for myself? What are they going to give me? Like, they want me to do this. They want me to do this. Well, they have to give me something in return. And as somebody who's a leader, it's exhausting to give so much to your people sometimes and then them take that for granted and just want more and more and more. It's like, how much more can I give you? I mean, I don't have this budget. I don't have that. But like, if you worked for, some other private company, like professional development would be something that you wanted to do. If you were a professional MMA fighter or, with the UFC, like you would seek out the training, you would seek out the sponsorship, you would do the things to help you be successful because it was your goal. So maybe if we work on changing the culture on the onset of someone's career, with letting them know about opportunities and that they can do things on their own and they don't need permission to get outside training, and that they're allowed to have a mindset of, I don't like, just questioning what's being said to them without it seeming like it's an ego thing, right? Like, I think it was Scott, you had, like, the most beautiful, like, I use it everywhere because I love it, and I give you credit, but that list you gave me about our officers today, right when we were at the curve training, and how like the officers come out and they're always asking why and it's because of this, but they're also really well rounded when it comes to being able to have conversations and have emotional intelligence. And at the end of the day, this job is hard and they're still showing up, so give them credit for that. Like, I gave that to my supervisors. I gave that to my saltiest lieutenant who was ready to retire. He's like, I can't stand these new kids, right? And I'm like, let's think of it in a new way, but let's start giving people permission to grow. Let's stop getting mad if they look for an opportunity to go to a different agency that fits their personality and their why. We don't do that. We take everything with this ego of, I did this for you, you owe me this, and it's so exhausting to see. And so yeah, like everything Scott was saying, and Eric, everything you went into, really, I think foundationally is the cultural issue within this profession with thinking that it's a career and not a profession, right? There isn't that idea of what professional development is. It is, well, we got to get this SOP checked and we got to do this, but how are we teaching it? How are we learning it? Where is our time constraints? Where's our budget? Where's all of these things that come together to create this black hole that we're in?
Yeah, absolutely. I love, man, there's a lot of places I want to go. And I want to cut back a little bit to what Scott was saying about the training aspect. Like training gets denied. Well, your department should pay for it, but should is really dangerous. And I'll credit my boss for this, but he made a habit of throwing should back at me. Right? I was like, well, leaders should, and this should. He's like, should isn't like here and now. Like it's cool you think that, but like, what do you? His follow up is like, so now, so what? Now what? Right? So the department should pay for more officer training. Okay, we all agree that's a good thing. If it's not happening, so what? Now what? Does the officer take some ownership? And just, I love the fitness comparison because I make the same one, which is if your department does not give you weights and give you time on duty and have a policy that says, yes, you can lift these weights on duty so you're better and all those things. If they do not do that, if they do not pay for a gym membership, where does that leave you? Okay, like you can be upset about it, you can rant about it, you can post on it, all these things. But where does that leave you? What are you going to do? Are you going to lift the weights on your own time or not? Are you going to run on your own time or not? Are you just going to fold your arms and be like, well, they don't they don't care about safety and they don't care about officer performance, and I'm just that's just too bad for them, and then you eat your cheeseburger, right? Like, where does it actually leave us? No, like I think anyone listening is going to be like, yes, you that is on the individual, we can challenge and we can invite and we can build the culture of our agency supporting these things, and we will be the voices that will keep asking for it, and eventually we'll be the voices promoted that can enact it. But in the meantime, like, what are we going to do with it?
Yeah, exactly. And so I guess, to play out your scenario, if the department doesn't allow you to do on-duty workout, and does that mean you're going to get fat and out of shape and to show them, to prove it, I'll
It
show
almost
you,
feels like
I'll
some
get fat
people,
and out of
like,
shape.
they might not consciously say that, but it almost feels like the human nature aspect of, like, rebellion or pride would say yes. Like, it almost feels like that at times. Maybe not that overtly, but in one circumstance or another.
But then, it's, if you think about it, take a step back and you think about those types of stuff, like who's really hurting from that? Who's really suffering from that? Well, it's you, right? Your health. And the same could be said of most anything that is training related. If you are not trained in some crucial domain in law enforcement, whether it's physical fitness or shooting or legal knowledge or defending yourself, and then something happens, well, who suffers the consequences? It's you, the individual. And if you're facing criminal exposure, civil exposure, or God forbid, being injured or killed in this job, you saying, well, that's not this isn't fair because they didn't train me. It's like, well, yeah, that's true, but that doesn't save you from a bullet. That doesn't save you from being arrested for some action you've took that you didn't realize what was happening. Or it's just, you're the one that's going to suffer as the officer. And I just think in 2026, we can probably agree being a police officer in 2026 is probably the most complex job function that exists in America. More is being asked of you than anyone else I can think of, any other career field. And so you have to be your own advocate, advocate for yourself. I'm going to protect myself from this huge liability that I face every day as a police officer. I'm going to protect myself and insulate myself. And, one way to do that is by gaining experience, right? The phrase is based on my training and experience. That's true. Having experience, there's no replacement for it. It allows you to see things that novices don't, right? You're an expert. You see things novices don't. You can make quicker decisions and whatnot. The problem with experience is that we have to wait for you to acquire it. Experience is great, but what you gained from it, you gained after you needed it. Training is a way of supplementing or making up for some aspect of that. It's not going to replace experience, but training seems to be a way to get you some knowledge and skills, sort of experiences that you didn't already have. If you're lacking in the experience, even if you've been doing the job for a long time, but you're just not in an area that really gets a lot of experience with whatever that topic is, well, training can help supplement that, and that's why it's so critical. So even if you're like, man, this stinks, my department doesn't pay for it, and it ought to be this way and it ought to be that way. Oh, yeah, that's true, but it's also true that now you're going to have to do it. Okay. Sucks. Your department's not really backing you on this, but you're going to have to do it. And, Heather said something earlier about asking for permission. And that made me think of, there are departments that I know of that somehow believe their employees have to get their permission to attend training on their off days,
Hmm.
which, let's take a step back and think about this. This is a free country, comrade. Like, my employer can't tell me what I can do on Saturday. Well, if I want to go to a training class, I'm paying out of my own pocket, of course. And I've met people that say, no, our policy is we have to apply for that, even to go on our day off. And I'm like, I don't think they
With
can
their own
deny you
money?
that training, but that just shows you that what a weird level of asking for permission. So that's what I thought of when you said that, Heather, is, asking for permission to go to training on my day off. I'd like to better myself. Is that okay? And I'm paying out of my own pocket. What a weird industry we have.
It's very much happening in New Jersey, actually, because of, everything that happened when the last attorney general was in with street cop training and everything. There was just this liability umbrella that happened with it. And so there are agencies here that have said, no, even on your own time, if you're going to go to something that you would bring back that may affect the agency, we need to technically approve it. And so my argument was, well, what if I want to go back for my degree? Are you going to tell me that I can't go back to college on my own time? What if it's a criminal justice degree? or read books or listen to
Right. Read a
podcasts.
book. That's what I
Like
was
how
thinking.
far are we taking this? And no
Yeah.
one's had to fight it yet, but I'm seeing so many cops saying like, they have to find them on their actual days off because if they use a personal day or a vacation day, like it could come back at them. But it's no insanity that very much in New Jersey there are agencies that are like, no, you need my permission. It's
Yeah.
insane.
I think that speaks to our industry, unfortunately, and society would like to basically use laws and regulations to regulate the behavior of police officers, right? So, we don't like something you mentioned a street cop company and the society didn't like what it saw in this training. So now, as opposed to penalizing the person that was responsible for that, let's penalize the officers by making them apply for training on their day off. And we're going to have new laws and new rules that we're going to get these cops into compliance. Well, that sounds good in some legislative hearing or whatnot, but that the unintended consequences of that is that now cops aren't going to training because it's like, well, I'm not filling out 7 pieces of paperwork and waiting 3 months to hear if I got approved so that I can go to this class. It's just too much headache, right? We've made it so hard. And the same kind of thing is happening with, well, we don't like how this officer over here used force on video. So now we wrote a whole new law that's going to make it illegal what he did. It's like, well, okay, that's fine. But did that solve the issue? Because you're just saying we're going to punish people if you do that. It's like, well, let's figure out why that person did that in the first place and try to prevent it from happening again, not just make consequences for if you do it again, like you bad little boys and girls. Eh, That's just unfortunately how a lot of our industry operates. Just like we're gonna get these little bad boys and girls in line. We're gonna make them comply.
Yeah, it's the broad stroke, knee jerk type of responses, whereas the context really matters, right? Because someone can go to, let's just say, training company A, and it presents five main topics, and four of them are amazing by everyone's, the public opinion is this is all right on. The one was like questionable, but how that person brings back that topic could be done in a matter of ways. They could say, hey, this is like the end all be all of, topic number five. I don't care what y'all say. They might have authority, they might have rank, might have influence, or they can say, hey, I also learned about this. What do you all think? And even in a simple roll call type of briefing, a lot of learning and development and counterpoint can happen that leaves everyone in attendance to that room feeling much stronger on the topic, not so much about concept number five, but stronger because they all understand their laws, their policy, their training, their culture, how they will respond as a team to this type of scenario or this type of problem, right? And so it's just, it for sure could be a very complicated discussion. I mean, if we keep going on it, but I love a couple of things that really came out in what you both shared. One is that, I mean, on that topic specifically, not training per se, but on having to apply for things and having to get approval for things. Like we are then training the culture to not make decisions. And what do people say they want officers to do? And what is the biggest challenge these days, as you say, Scott, in 2026? It's you're trying to make decisions based on all these factors, all these laws, policies that are honestly continually shifting, right? The social and political dynamics are continuing to morph and adapt. We need the most nimble, resilient, forming, optimized, critical thinkers out there. And the landscape is always changing. Do you want them to be able to make decisions? You're asking them not to by doing all of these types of things. Hey, Sarge, want to tow this car. Okay, you're training them to not know how to discern whether they should tow a car or not, right? So there's all these downstream consequences to that type of, we'll call it micromanaging, right? There's a time and place when you don't have the trust and the credibility and the time together, the relationship. So let's just say there's this terrible unit that you've inherited as a leader. It might be fair because you don't know the unit, you don't know the people, you don't know their dynamics, what they do to have your finger on the pulse and ask questions about everything that's going on. That might be very appropriate. But outside of that, we know what type of environment that creates for workers. It's distrust. You don't feel trusted, you don't feel valued, you don't feel like a part of a team with open communication.
Yeah, true. And you
Heather,
know,
I want to,
it's at my old agency. It was interesting. The they issued me a, in addition to other guns, they issued me an AR-15 with high capacity magazines, and I had 6 or 7 of those, and all the ammunition I wanted anytime I wanted to go shooting at our range, no problem. I had access to shotguns and less lethal launchers and you name it, all kinds of cool weapons. But, one day the sighting system on my AR went down because the battery went out. So I needed to change the battery. And so I started looking around for batteries, AA batteries for my sighting system. And I was kind of newer to the agency at the time. It's my second agency. And I'm like, hey, can somebody tell me where the hell the batteries are? I've looked everywhere in this building. I cannot find, I figured like they're by a pens or they're where's the office supplies kept, right? And an officer goes, well, you got to get a sergeant to get those. And I was like, come on, what? Because no, they're locked in a cabinet and only the sergeants have the keys. And I was like, that's not true, And he's like, no, it's true. And I went and found a sergeant. I go, because I remember I lateraled over as an officer. I go, hey, sergeant, sorry to bother you. I think I'm being set up, by the way. But anyway, somebody told me I got to come to you and you got to unlock the sergeants, have to unlock the batteries. And he's like, that's true. He's like, they are locked over here and I'd be happy to unlock them for you. So he unlocked them and issued me a battery or two for my machine gun. And I was like, does it strike you as ironic that I can get all the guns and bullets I want, but that, you have to unlock the batteries for my sighting system? And he's like, it is, but I guess we had officers were taking too many batteries at one point. And I was like, okay, sir, sounds great. I'm going to go in service now with my new sighting system up and running. That's just an interesting snapshot about what we trust our cops with and what we don't. It's like, you're not smart enough to figure out when to tow a car, but here's your machine gun. You can have all the bullets you want for this thing.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
Yeah. I want to take the conversation a certain direction. And this kind of popped in my mind as everyone was talking about professionalism and we are talking about the team and these concepts that sometimes feel so absent. And we think about a team. Let's take sports. And as those close to me know, I'm not an avid sports fan, but I'm increasingly intrigued because of the carryover for team dynamics in sports psychology. But when we think about a team and why people have to work together and how they figure out how to best work together, it's to win. Like ultimately, their goal is to win. It's to win the game. They have a set of rules, they acquire points, right? So, and we think about like where policing needs to go, why we have training, what makes us professional, what does winning look like? And I'm curious what you both think when we bring in this concept of winning for the police profession. And maybe that would help a lot of listeners orient for their own teams, their own culture of like, what are we driving towards? Like, what is the mission here? What does winning look like?
That's a really, I think, a layered question to answer because at the end of the day, the goal is to go home, right? Like at the end of the day, that's the number one goal. But that has all these layers that go with it. Is that, mental health awareness and creating a space for people to be emotionally intelligent and emotionally available? Is that also the physical fitness aspect of being able to go home? Is it being able to survive a shooting and have the tactics and all of those things. But like when you talk to so many police officers and people in law enforcement, like I think a lot of their goal winning is retirement, right? Without being indicted or dead. I mean, and that's really sad. But when you think about the leadership level of policing, our goal is to succeed in what the mission of the agency is. But if you ask the people in the agency what the mission statement of the agency is, I bet you not one person can like recite it back to you usually, right? It's very, very rare. So it's that common goal of success. And I don't know if an organization can have a barometer of what winning looks like in policing because there are so many unknown elements that come in, right? Whether it's internal affairs or the changing environment, politically, economically, where you're set up. Like, what does winning really look like? And it's so independent to every agency and where they are. I can tell you that winning for me is making sure that my people know that they can balance home and work and that they're living the life that serves them the most and that we're impacting our community in a positive way. There are these, like I said, there's layers to that answer, but I mean, like part of our mission statement, it's so long and it focuses so much, and this is going to sound insane coming from me, but it focuses legitimately on recruiting women. And that really does, down to the bone, bother me because I've never wanted to segregate just like I want to be able to have that diversity aspect and people feel like they can get the job if they're worthy of being there and they've reached the goals to get there. But that's such a focus. So to me, just having women meeting a goal isn't success. It's like having this team that shows up and there's cohesion and there's the ability to feel like you're in a safe space to say if something's bothering you, or and like being able to have a mental health day instead of a sick day. Like those are the barometers of success that I look for as a leader. But I just don't know if I can personally talk about what finite success looks like for a police agency, because so many people okay, we didn't shoot somebody and cause a riot. We didn't, there wasn't like our crime stats went down. We've been able to retain people and recruit people. Like there is this quantitative measure of what success is, but quantifiably it isn't as important to me as the qualitative aspect of policing and the culture within the agency. But maybe that's what makes me different than other leaders. So I hate your question because
No,
I
I
don't have an
you
answer.
can hate my question, but I love your answer, and here's why.
All right.
Because when we had when earlier Scott was talking about who loses in this scenario when training doesn't happen or training happens poorly, the officer and the community, right? And that's why everyone starts this job. Well, most people, the large majority, community, they want to help, they want to serve, they want to protect, they want to do this hard, exciting, sometimes fun, but this hard stuff, this necessary stuff. And yes, it's okay to like have your own reasons. Like, hey, I want stories. I want to go live some stories. I want some adventure. I want some excitement. I want to do this stuff. I also want to develop myself. I want to prove to myself. I want to model to my kids. I want to prove to my the people that counted me out, right? The bullies of society, whatever. Like we all have a mixture, a kind of formula in there. But when you talk about winning, Heather, you weren't prepared for the question, but you hit on all these things that are really critically important to you so long as you live your life in the way with the values and wearing the badge the best you can, how to take care of your people, how to show support, how to show up for the community and all the layers that go into that. And I think that's where we're missing because we talk about this on the show, which is like the agency doesn't care because it doesn't. It doesn't have feelings. It's not a living, breathing thing, but it is made up of the people within it. So if everyone thought for a moment or a few moments or took a weekend and wrote down some notes and came up with some phrases and some ideas, they would all come out better having a strong knowing of what their mission is, because if they're achieving their mission or they're getting close to it, then I think that's winning. And if everyone's doing that, I can't tell you what winning is as a police officer, but you should be able to tell you what winning is for a police officer, even with the changing policies that make it really hard and make it morally injurious at times. You have to keep navigating that. I can't tell you how to navigate that. I can make suggestions, but you have to do it on your own.
Yeah. I mean, I can give you a beautiful example of winning, especially when it comes to training. I mean, I've always felt that people go to training and then if they don't bring it back to the agency and it doesn't get enveloped into the police officer that they are, like what is the point, I guess? I never I mean, I always feel like it's important to go, but like what are you bringing back? Like training isn't just for you, it's for everybody. And so when I send my people for training, I say be ready to come back and talk about it and teach. And so we had the opportunity to send some women in law enforcement from New Jersey to a couple training classes out in the Poconos, ran by an independent company. One of them was vehicle centric defensive tactics. And for me, I thought it was like getting someone out of the car, but it came down to us protecting ourselves in the car. And I've never trained that way. Never, not once in 22 years have I ever said, get in the car and have somebody draw a gun on you and see how you can react with getting off your seatbelt, moving, throwing the vehicle in reverse, doing all these things. Well, I brought two of my female officers with me because it was like a gift to New Jersey women in law enforcement from this company. And as we're there, I'm like, listen, I'm sending you two, but I have an expectation that you turn around and you teach this in roll call and you do this. And so it was a couple weeks after we all came back, and Corporal LaRocho was one of the women I brought with me, and she just all of a sudden like pulled up on her Sergeant Barton, at like after roll call, and he was like in his car, and she's like, "I'm shooting at you. What are you gonna do?" Right? And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And she walked through so many things in about 20 minutes of what she learned and like how to be like aware of where your seatbelt is and where your gun is and how to move and how to pull somebody in and hold them close and all these beautiful little techniques to adapt and improvise and overcome a situation. Not an hour later, he's at a drive through picking up food, and somebody having a mental health crisis attacks him inside his vehicle. Like, what are the
Whoa.
chances,
Yeah.
right? And he does everything that Arocha told him, and he lived. And the other guy got in and was on top of him and trying to drive the car and stealing it and assaulting him. And he held on and he knew where his gun was and he held on to his gun and he didn't get it, let it taken from him. And he kept his foot on the brake. He couldn't get it to drive. He tried to key up. Like he did all of these things that she walked him through. So you want to talk about like a success story of empowering her to feel as though that not only was she getting the opportunity to get the training, but to give it back, right? So
Yeah.
pay it forward is my big thing all the time. It's like that to me defines winning. Like that's a success story within that. And it's just that like is the best thing I can say about what to do with your training with your people. I have an expectation that they are allowed to bring it back and teach.
Hear what you both have to say, and then I want to talk a little bit about the curve and where we all met not so long ago. So, Scott, do you have anything on what Heather just shared about? I mean, that is winning in clear illustration.
No, she shared that video with me and I watched it. Now, it was incredible. And that's a testament to the instructors that actually taught the class. They were clear in what the salient points were and they were able to present them in a fashion that caused transfer, right? So because then the corporal was able to remember those things and then go out and recite those things and teach those things. And, good on the sergeant for being receptive to this probably young officer coming in and saying, I learned something new, right? And you could be like, oh, get out of here kind of thing. But it sounds like everything was working pretty well, in that fashion. And so that's a good model for all of our trainers is when you're teaching, let's make sure you're doing it in a clear way that your main point is getting across. And it's not just about what's happening in the class. How are you instilling that information into the students' long term memory in a way that they'll be transfer out in the field where they can actually do something with it? And like Heather did, let's ask the students that are attending the class to go back and share some information with the rest of us to make it all better. Because I would define winning as, the police do the right thing at the right time for the right reasons on game day. When the big one hits on game day, whatever that is, like in this sergeant, it was being attacked in his car. For other police officers, it's like when a big case happens, and there's been a homicide or a kidnapping or something like that, or a sexual assault, and you go do the right things, whatever that is. You lock down the scene, you found the right witness, or in a tactical situation, you thought clear headedly and were able to apply the law and tactics and you understand human performance and you outsmarted the suspect and got the guy in custody without too much of an issue and went on to save the day. Like that, to me, that's what I want of my own the police officers in my hometown. Winning to me is like when I call 911, what do I want to see on the other side? I want a smart, in shape, tactically proficient police officer who treats me well and is a professional, right? They look the part, they sound the part, they say and do all the things I want them to do, and they're professional. Now, our job as police leaders, police trainers, whatever, is to make all that stuff happen. Like there's a lot that has to go on behind the scenes to make those types of things happen, right? So how do our departments take care of our employees and create these perfect little, police officers? How do we do that so that on game day, when some citizen calls 911 and says this crazy thing is happening, the person responding out to them is like totally ready for this. That's what I think of a win is. To me, everything else is secondary. It's just like when we really needed you to be good, you were good, and it's our job behind the scenes to make you that way.
Yeah. And how you get that way is training. And that's not just classroom, that's treating all your reps like they matter because it's like Simon Sinek shared with us, paraphrasing Nick Saban. So I'll paraphrase that, but basically like playing each play to perfection. Like if you get the basics down, if you go to the cold theft and you don't cut corners and you treat the victim and the witness with respect and you give them the time of day and you get a really thorough interview, you're going to have those skills refined for when you are talking to the similarly traumatized mother who can't find her kid and who's trying to explain to you the story with the estranged father of the kid, right? In those critical moments where it really matters. At the shoplift, that simple theft, that that store clerk might be very traumatized, might be very rattled. Are you able to give them the time of day, exercise your skills to get a good interview and treat them with some compassion rather than getting impatient. And I'm saying I've gotten impatient in that, right? But when we think about winning, that's what I think about, in the context of what you both shared today.
Yeah, amen. Look at everything like a rehearsal for the big one. And if you have that mindset where you every day you're 10-8, you're on patrol and you're like, even when it's a nonsensical little nothing call, you can just be like, well, this gives me an opportunity to rehearse something.
Yeah.
Maybe it's an interview, maybe it's driving, maybe it's, I don't know, whatever. But it's like, this is an opportunity to rehearse for the big one because when the big one hits, the time for rehearsal and training is over and it is time to just perform. And the people who perform well are the ones that have gotten the reps, conducted the mental rehearsals. They've gamed this thing out. They've played this. They've made the mental models, and they're able to function in really trying circumstances. So, if you're a young patrolman and you're just like, oh man, I don't do anything cool. I'm just out here doing, these little calls for service or whatever, these little nothing calls. It's like, that's cool. Just look at it as a rehearsal. You're
Yeah.
just getting your reps in, getting ready for the big one.
I mean, that's complacency too, right? Like, I don't know how many times I've seen, and I work in a busy place and a share of crime. I don't know how many times I've seen patrol partners through the years not unholster when they're clearing a building, and it's an actual good bird, right? They just think the guy's gone or the guys are gone. But I've also found burglars where there's no damage inside, right? Oh, it might be an oversight. Okay, it might be an oversight. It might not be an oversight. So, are you going to actually use the awesome training and tactics that you were instructed on in case, or are you going to not do it? So, and we could go a lot of different directions there. Let's talk about the curve in closing because we all got to meet in person at the curve massive, which was super rewarding. Not to share too much of like my experience because I'm hosting you both. So why don't we go to Heather? Let's talk about meeting at the curve. What is the curve? What's your take on the curve?
The curve is this I feel like it's the mastermind, like Pinky and the Brain, right? Everybody kind of coming together wanting to make a change. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I think I still have a little bit of imposter syndrome from being there. I was like, how am I in this circle of these incredible people? And I I manifested that. I'll be very honest. I saw Simon Sinek speak at the IACP conference in San Diego in 2023. And as he was on stage talking about the curve with Chris on stage, I turned to my chief and I'm like, I'm going to work alongside that man someday. It's going to happen. I was like, I
Wow,
love
that's the
him. I
shit.
love everything he has to say. Like, it's happening. And then he's like, yeah, okay, Heather, whatever, whatever you say. I'm like, I guess you don't know me real well enough, chief. And so then, 2 years later, I'm in San Diego and I'm at the Willie conference and I'm speaking. And I come to find out that I'm talking to Angela, Chief Angela, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna go out to dinner with Simon and Chris tonight." I'm like, "Simon Sinek?" And
Mhm.
she's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Can you just tell him I love him?" Like strictly platonic, like in a, "Oh my God, he's my Michael Jordan
Yeah,
of leadership."
respect.
My gosh, like, she's like, "Yeah, 100%." And then she sends me a message. She's like, "Chris and Simon would like to meet you tomorrow." And I was like, "Wait a minute, Simon Sinek knows my name." And then I got to meet him in 5 minutes of conversation and talking to him about my recruitment and retention efforts. And him and Chris are like, "You should come to Aspen." And I was like, "I will go anywhere with you. Like, I'll put in time off right now. Like, what are we doing?
Mm,
I'm on the curve train. Let's go." Going in that room with nothing, no expectations at all. I walked out of there with my cup being filled up in a way that I didn't even know I needed. Being around like-minded professionals throughout the country that really just want to make an impact and a difference. Coming from an environment where I was feeling super negative with some of the people that were in my circle, I loved everything about it. I mean, I loved our conversation at dinner that one night. Scott's training was super impactful to me, like so much so that I have given him credit and used it in so many different ways. Just meeting and Angela and hearing the different perspectives and getting to be with Misty because she's my girl and the intimate dinners and just the way we were treated and the excellent customer service that was afforded to us in a way that was just so holistic and genuine. It's how I like to define my leadership. So it was impactful beyond impactful. And I was able to bring back the idea of scorecards that I'm working on with one of my internal teams at my work in order to see how that's actually going to work for us. So yeah, I mean the curve has meant more to me in the couple months that I've been a part of it than a lot of other movements that I've been a part of in law enforcement in 22 years. So that's saying a lot, and that's a big bar to have to get up to. But It's just true.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a lot of the same reflections where, meeting Chris online and then seeing how his brain works with leadership, like reading his materials and connecting and picking his brain, having him on the show and him continuing to be a gracious mentor. And then to get brought into that circle, to that event, like it felt like such an achievement because it wasn't like an award you win. It was just like a relation, like a fellowship, right? It was just by virtue of the work I'm trying to do. And so that was really rewarding because that this work is only possible in culmination of my whole career. And so I share it because, and I wanted your reflections, and we'll go to you, of course, Scott. But for listeners, like I kind of said it earlier, but I'm in this point in life where it's like not about the things you achieve per se, but it's like the work you do. And although this was very gratifying and validating from outside, like it's just another achievement if you don't recognize the deeper thing, right? And the bigger thing, which is, if I focus on that, then I'm like, well, when's the next one? Where's the next thing? And where's the next event? It's like, no, that has to be internal. And I think it does intersect with how do you look at winning? How do you look at training? Like, what is training going to do conceptually for you to be the best officer, administrator, corrections, dispatcher, professional person in and out of work? Like, how are you going to look at all these things? And that's really like the big picture of what we talk about a lot on here. um so yeah, Scott, I want to get your impressions because it was cool that we met, online, and we are talking on the podcast, we're talking off the podcast. I found out you knew Chris from way back when, SWAT buddies. So yeah, what was that experience like for you?
The curve is a social movement. I thought of the curve as being a think tank, but and speaking with Chris, he's like, no, it's really a social movement. And this social movement is trying to professionalize the profession of policing, trying to professionalize it. And then there comes that word again, and Chris Young, Simon Sinek, Jack Colley, and Doug Shoemaker, a few others are part of these sort of founders of this social movement, and they're bringing in folks like ourselves along the way to say, why don't you come join us and help us? And so the retreat that we were all at was a chance for us all to kind of just share some ideas and talk about different things we thought would be relevant to achieving the mission to professionalize policing. And, you know, echoing what you all said, it was really, of course, an honor to be invited to go there, but then really relieved. I was relieved, I guess is a word, that there are so many people that are dedicated to improving our profession because it matters, right? This is a high consequence job we do. There's nothing trivial about being a police officer. And so seeing that there's so many people that and everyone has their own spin on it, and everyone has their own gifts that they want to give, right? I come from the training slant. Other people come from different slants, and they're like, we're all just trying to contribute in some way. And then because you have people like Simon Sinek involved, it gets a lot of attention, right? And meeting Simon, of course, after reading all his books is an honor. And I was really moved by the fact that it occurred to me as I was talking to him, and I told him, I go, I just want to thank you for doing this because you don't have to, right? There's no reason you have to involve yourself in such a controversial and so such a complex sort of wicked problem of saving people's lives, right? And trying to prevent the police from having to kill people that maybe didn't need to be killed, and also keeping cops alive. And he's like, no, I want to be involved in this kind of thing. So, that's really inspiring because this is obviously a person that doesn't need to involve himself with this stuff if he didn't want to. He's got a very, very successful career. He doesn't need to do this. So it's really cool, and I would just encourage people to kind of check it out. If you go to the website, the Curves website, there's some articles and there's stuff you can consume there. And I look at it as it's really just getting started. I think, that website and maybe future events to come is just going to keep getting bigger. So introduce yourself to it now if you haven't seen it, and follow everything on social media, and just start to maybe consume some of the foundational documents they have there, which is kind of like, what is the curve trying to do? What are we sort of trying to achieve, and what will it look like when we get there? How will we know? Right? I think some questions that are still being answered right now. I don't know that we're done. I don't know that we can say this is exactly how we're going to do it, but man, we're sure trying, and it's really exciting to be part of it.
Yeah, I love that. That's the curve.org. And yeah, I think the point of something like this, it's a moving target and it is a movement. And it's, when I posted about going at first, people were like, man, like how do you get part of the curve? And like what is it? And I'm like, I'm in real time trying to figure that out. But I think you describe it well as many people have. It's a movement. And I had a post that was kind of like, about being in the room. And it's like, if you are of the volition and you're of the values to make policing better, whatever that looks like for your neighborhood or for your country or what have you, then you're a part of it. Like if you're doing the work, if you're having the conversations, if you're leading with your heart, that's what it's about. Like it's going to look different for all of us, but when it's about values and how you show up for people on their worst days, for the vulnerable, as the curve defines policing, like protecting the vulnerable, it's that stuff. And so I'm really excited to be just aligned with it and being along for the ride. Um, I just did I was asked to speak on like a criminal justice panel yesterday at a local university, and it was really like geared towards prosecutors. I thought it was really cool that they invited a police officer, and I found it was a great time to bring that up, kind of in closing of what I was offering from inside of the career and the stressors that come with it, and just an understanding for prosecutors and police professionals. But saying like, yeah, this is the thing. Like we got work to do. Let's roll up our sleeves and let's keep doing it. Let's keep connecting. Let's go in a positive direction. So that's what it means to me. But yeah, shout out to Simon for sure, because you're absolutely right. I hadn't thought about it in those words, but you're absolutely right. Like people don't have to involve themselves with anything related to police. In fact, many don't. Many are supportive silently, and I'm not disparaging that. But even on smaller scales, like I was aware of in a lot of situations where people wanted to support, but they're just like, I just can't put my brand on it. It's too polarizing. And I'm like, I get it. It's okay. Like I appreciate the support. You do what you can. But yeah, very overt, very cool. Please tell the listeners where they can find you.
You can find me on social media. I'm on LinkedIn, Heather Glogolich. I'll spell it for you, Eric. It's Glogolich. I'm usually on Instagram a lot, Heather underscore empowered policing. I'm also an instructor with the Justice Academy. And I just recently got onboarded with FBI LIDA, which I'm super excited to be a part of, especially the people out there that feel that they have to kind of fit a mold to be in this profession. You don't. Like we need you to stand out and stand up and be who you are as an individual, and don't play small so other people feel big, because we try to fit check the box, right? But with us all coming together with our individual strengths, that's really what makes us the best we can be. So that's my closing.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Heather. Scott,
Yeah.
let's close this out.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for listening to this and participating in our discussion about trying to professionalize policing and trying to it is a very consequential job we have, and society's asking us to perform like elite performers every day. And so I think we owe it to those officers to provide them elite training, elite preparation for game day, right? So I'm always happy to connect with anyone. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. You can find me there, Scott Savage, or on Instagram. But the best place to kind of find out about what we're doing at the Savage Training Group is on our website. It's savagetraininggroup.com. Of course, we advertise all of our training there, where there's a lot of free downloads and videos and podcast interviews, stuff to check out if you're interested in becoming a professional police officer.
And everyone should be. All right. Thank you both so much for this.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.